This album was released in 1978 and was fully produced by its two leads, Dan Fogelberg and Tim Weisberg. Dan is a folk rock artist, while Tim is a jazz flautist. This album features a gatefold jacket with a classic paper sleeve. When Dan originally made this album, he wanted to make something completely about music without any commercial aspirations whatsoever. Even though he was entirely dedicated to making this album about music, he was so concerned that this was going to be a flop that he flew over to Europe to avoid the press. That wasn't until a few weeks later, after the release, he was called by his manager, who informed him he had made it onto the top 20 albums in the nation. This album is awesome because it combines both rock and jazz, and you can clearly hear those influences working together and not against each other. However, one thing I find really interesting is that my least favorite song on the album is actually one of the best liked songs on its release, and we'll talk about that more later. Something I kept on hearing was that Tim carried this album, and I wouldn't agree with that. This is a great example of two people who want to make good music working together to make good music, and not one person carrying the album. Twins' theme has a cinematic melody. It's gorgeous, it's uplifting. It features Dan on the piano and of course Tim on the flute. It has easily the smoothest transition on the album into our next song, Intimidation. Tim again plays the flute and Dan does the electric guitar and supplemental percussion. Now this song has one of the coolest lines in the album. I love it so much, it's so good, and it just sounds like two bros getting together and jamming out. Honestly, when I hear this album, I imagine a bunch of dudes in skinny jeans and bomber jackets just helping each other up, then walking down the street all mysterious like, just being from the 80s. Lazy Susan sounds like it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and the entire time I listened to the song, I craved a pina colada. There's not much to this song, in my opinion. It just sounds like a good time. Then there's Guitar Etude number 3. It has really nice classical guitar from Dan. It is very bossa nova. In fact, one critique I saw said it sounded like a perverted version of Girl from Ipanema. But in reality, I think it's just another bossa nova song. But I don't think that this was meant to be any kind of disrespectful to the bossa nova genre. Tell Me to My Face kind of reminds me of the music from the movie Road to El Dorado, a song about where one lover dumps the other in the form of a note. It's a pretty epic song, features a lot of solos from Tim and Dan respectively. Kind of feels like a song Santana would hop on, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. Hurtwood Alley is the song I mentioned earlier that did way better on its initial release than it did in my office, because I did not like this at all. A lot of this album is super dynamic with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of change in emotion based on the arrangement and volume and stuff like this. But Hurtwood Alley doesn't do that, it kind of stays in one place. It's really one-dimensional in my opinion, and it's the lowest point in the album. But it's also not a bad song. It's not a horrible song. It's not one where I was like, ugh, I still listen to the whole thing. It's just the lowest on the album. Apologies in advance for mispronouncing this. Lahaina is a city on Maui in Hawaii, and it was one of the cities that was destroyed in the fire. Lahaina Luna is very similar to Lazy Susan. It's meant to make you feel like you're in Lahaina. I feel very fresh when I listen to this song, like I just got done meeting some new people, walked up to a bar, got a brand new drink, then I started dancing to a song I never heard before. Very open, very fun, very smooth ending as well. Paris Nocturne is very Western classical music, as the name suggests. There's only 2 songs on this album that don't feature any percussion, Twins Theme and Paris Nocturne. And the whole time it bounces between epic and melancholy, and I would think that it ends on a melancholy note. But there's definitely an overarching story to it. How the story ends is up to you. Since You Asked is a great song, is short and to the point, and it kind of sounds like it could be the emotional climax to a musical. There's a lot of lyrical imagery about nature being amazing and fantastic, and the arrangement of the instruments really gives it that awe-inspiring feeling. The Power of Gold. This song has a fantastic bass line. Shout out to Norbert Putnam. This is a cautionary song about, we've all heard this point before, don't chase clout, don't chase money. It's kind of clunky. The rhyming in it is similar to Jean-Ralphio's rhyming in Parks and Recreation.
K to the N to the O-P-E, she's the dopest little shorty in all Pawnee, Indiana.
But it's arranged well, and I think the message is good, and that's the important things. Alright guys, that was a quick review of Twin Sons of Different Mothers by Dan Fogelberg and Tim Weisberg. If you have any other albums you want me to review, or if you want to see more of my selection of albums, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe.